So, Megalopolis. Man, where do I begin with this film? Hi, my name is Jack. Today we will be talking about Megalopolis, a new film that I actually saw at the Toronto Film Festival just like 2 weeks ago, but now it's available for everybody to see in IMAX this weekend. And it probably won't last for the entire weekend because it's probably going to be pulled due to the box office returns, but that's beyond the point. So let's start from the beginning with Megalopolis and like how this came into fruition. So this is like my second time recording this video because I just went like completely off the rails with my review of Megalopolis. So I'm going to try this again and I really go super deep into this film because I think this film is one of the worst films of the year, but like also it's one of the most unintentionally funny, batshit crazy films that you'll see this year compared to like Madam Web. So let's like get started with this review of Megalopolis. So Megalopolis is Francis Ford Coppola's new film, and it's been like 47 years in the making. He's been trying to make this film for the past 47 years, and he's been like trying and trying and trying. The last draft was like in the 90s, and you can actually read the draft online, and it's very like comparable to the final draft that you see in this film. It goes like deep into why Caesar, the main character played by Adam Driver, and other characters, how they're trying to like react and interact into like this world of New Rome. And the film is basically about like this architect Caesar who is trying to build a utopia, and he has like this kind of like crazy steel material called the Megalodon that can basically build anything from like buildings to fixing medicine and like weird hologram dresses. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the Megalodon, and there's other people who want the Megalodon and want to use it for, you know, corruption and power. That's like the elites, you know, the mayor, the king, other like elite people who want to like take Caesar's plans of building a utopia and use it against the poor. And it's like a film about like the class struggles, how like the poor are poor, the rich are rich, and nothing is going to change. And it also plays around with like the artistic boundaries of like artists and how they put like their blueprints and their plans together, but like are destroyed by higher people. And you can play that around with Francis Ford Coppola's own modern and historical life, as he's been trying to make this film for a really long time, and like other films that he's been trying to make, like Apocalypse Now, which had like a really bad production problem, and other films that he's made over the years that had like a lot of production problems. So you can like put everything like two to two together, and the way the film presents itself is completely different because, man, this is fucking crazy, man. Now, first of all, let me just say this, man. Let me just say this. I was actually really excited to see this movie, especially since I got tickets for it at the Toronto Film Festival. I was able to watch this movie, but I was like completely like up front in front of the screen because that was the last row tickets, and I could have picked the Piano Teacher, but I was just like, nah, I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix because I gotta see this to believe it. And boy, this was just a fucking wild ride, man. Like, I read the production issues behind this film from Coppola smoking a lot of weed and like coming out of his trailer and just fixing a lot of like the dialogue on the fly, from like the sexual harassment allegations from like the background actors, to even like Coppola complaining about how he picked a lot of his cast because they were like canceled in the past, and just a lot of like crazy shit that like happened between like the production of this film. And it was giving me like Apocalypse Now vibes with his production issues with that film. So yeah, you have that, and then you just have like Coppola implementing a like fourth wall breaking moment scene in the film, which is really funny and is very midnight movie madness type of thing. But you have that. You have me just like sitting in the front row in the IMAX Scotiabank Theater, crazy out of my mind and ready to watch this movie. And man, like this movie was just everything that I got and just the worst things that I got. This movie just fails at everything with its thematics, but also succeeds with being one of the most unintentionally funny movies of the year compared to Madam Web. So you have Caesar, who is played by Adam Driver, and he has this like Megalodon steel kind of architectural thing that can like build buildings and save people with medicine, and just use it for like other things like hologram dresses and just fashion items. And he uses that megalodon to create a utopia, and you have a bunch of like these elites who are trying to like stop him. You have the mayor, who's played by Giancarlo Esposito, the Chicken Man from Breaking Bad. And you have other characters like the king, or some sort of king, played by Jon Voight. You have the king's son, played by Shia LaBeouf, not daughter, but son, kind of, because he's in drag. And then you also have the mayor's daughter, played by Natalie Emmanuel. And throughout the film, all of these characters are trying to stop Caesar and his plans to build a utopia for everybody. And again, this film really plays a lot with like artistic boundaries and like how far you can take it with just building a world and the whole idea of New Rome. And I will probably kind of compare this to The Godfather because it insists upon itself.
What didn't you like about it?
It insists upon itself, Lois.
What?
It insists upon itself.
What does that even mean?
Except this actually insists upon itself compared to The Godfather, which was insisting upon itself, but you could kind of like tell where it was going. Let me start by saying that this shit needs to be seen in IMAX because it's going to be like out by the end of this week because of the box office returns. It's going to make $5 billion or 5 Megalopolis bucks or $5 actually. But I think this film needs to be seen in theaters really fucking high. And I say that because this film kind of reminded me of The Room meets like a Neil Breen film where all the characters are over-explaining their grievances and kind of like frustrations behind Caesar's plan to build a utopia, but in the most unintentionally funny ways, especially with Aubrey Plaza, who plays a newscaster, played Wow Platinum, and she is in love with Caesar. And then you also have the mayor's daughter who's in love with Caesar, and it's a love triangle. And Aubrey Plaza is playing it with her own kind of way, Aubrey Plaza way. Shia LaBeouf is Shia LaBeouf. He's just going fucking crazy, and he's in drag the whole time. Jon Voight is pooping, shitting, and farting the whole time, acting like an old man. Dustin Hoffman just appears in like 2 or 3 scenes and just like disappears. And then Giancarlo Esposito is the Chicken Man, but he's the mayor. He's the mayor of the chicken. So you have all these characters who are just like going batshit crazy. There's a moment like in the beginning where they started to talk in like Shakespearean language, but then they immediately drop it like 20 minutes in as Adam Driver is taunting and making fun of the mayor's daughter by giving like this weird black accent, saying that you should go back to the club.
So go back to the club.
And it's just hilarious the whole time. And I'm just like geeking and like gooning out throughout this whole film, like really just like having a blast and knowing that like this film is just unintentionally funny and just batshit insane. And it has nothing to do with the actual like thematic of the film, which is an artist who is very tortured and wants to build a utopia and build a future, but like everybody is just like making fun of him and like trying to like take him out. But the way it's been being played out is just absolutely hilarious. And you know what? I was just simply too seated to watch this film. Just way too seated. They couldn't like get me out of the theater because I was just simply too fucking seated. And even after the fact, I understand why like this film had a lot of like production issues, because this guy literally smoked up a fat joint, went to his van, took out like the scripts, like scribbled everything, and then just like came out and like redid like a lot of these scenes. I can also see why this guy just literally like went out of his way to like sexually harass the background actors in this film. I could totally see why like Coppola was just mad at like people complaining about like the cast behind this film, since a lot of them are kind of like canceled in the Hollywood sphere. But like even with all that in mind, the film also has a lot of like AI slop and like weird PS2 graphics, mainly because I think like half of the CG team just was like completely like lost, and they kind of like exit themselves out of the film. So you can tell like a lot of like the CG is either unfinished or kind of like finished but like needs like an extra pass. And then on top of that, like this kind of like reminded me a bit of The Spirit meets Spy Kids with like the CG graphics. And then just like the film in general just goes completely south with a lot of like themes going back and forth between Caesar's struggles with building this utopia and like other people who are trying to like stop it. But yeah, like this movie is just like incomprehensible, if that's the word, and just doesn't have a plan. Even though this was like 47 years in the making, like this is just absolutely insane. And I'm actually glad that like Coppola was able to make this movie, because I don't think it's going to be like the misunderstood masterpiece of his like last legacy. I think this film will just kind of completely turn into like a midnight movie madness film where you get really fucking high, you watch it, and people just like make fun of it. And I think that's like the point of Megalopolis. And I actually want to like quote like some lines from this movie because I think it's like really fucking funny. How old are you? 12? I was 12 once. Oh, and yeah, this one's my favorite. What do you think of my boner? And this comes like after the most elaborate boner joke that I've seen in film. And I don't want to spoil it, but it's like really fucking funny. But yeah, like this film has a lot of like crazy dialogue and just a lot of stuff that's like happening in between that I can't like explain. I can't spoil it. I can't explain it. You just have to see it. So yeah, like I gave this like 1.5 and like a heart on my letterbox, but I'm gonna like keep it that because yeah, it's so bad it's good and it deserves like to be whooped with like criticism. But I love this film and I will be watching it for years to come. But if you've seen Megalopolis, I want to hear you guys' thoughts about this film. I will be reviewing a few more things from the Toronto Film Festival, especially since some of them are actually going to be released later in October. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, thank you guys for my really crazy review of Megalopolis. I hope you guys have a good day, night, evening. Thank you.